Live long and prosper. I should stop that, shouldn't I? Yeah, I'm gonna stop that.
I got conference room cleanup duty in your face.
Let's see what I got assigned. Holodeck waste removal.
Whoa. Whoa. That's Klingon prison stuff.
I'm about to go watch an Ascension.
Oh, like a Q or the Traveler.
Hey, are we supposed to join in?
Mariner stays up all night coming up with new ways to piss me off. Live long and prosper. Don't you give me that sarcastic Vulcan salute!
Hi, I'm Phil. Welcome to my channel where I talk about all the geeky pop culture that I enjoy, including Star Trek. So, as usual, Star Trek review time, because weekly reviews here on the channel of Star Trek Lower Decks. This week, Moist Vessel. Moist. Moist. You either love that word or you hate it. Actually, I'm kind of indifferent to it, but moist, just for those of you that, please don't click off. I promise not to say the word again. Maybe at the end of the episode. As usual, I'll be giving my non-spoiler thoughts first, and then I'll move on to more spoiler things and give you plenty of warning, just in case you haven't seen the episode, because it's not airing in the UK. How am I watching it? Ooh, never mind. Maybe I've taken a flight to America or something just to watch it. Let's not talk about that. Yeah, so, this episode, what did I think of it? It's, I'd say it's on par with sort of episode 2 for me. Every episode I have enjoyed so far. This is a very good series. I'm enjoying it, definitely. However, I think the strongest episode was last week. Episode 1 was really strong too. And episodes 2 and this episode have been kind of like, yeah, they've been enjoyable. They've been, you know, fun. But they haven't made me laugh as much as the other 2 episodes have. And they haven't been quite as strong in other areas either, I don't think. Although, saying that, there are certainly good points about both of them. Neither of them are bad episodes. And there's a lot to enjoy about it. And we get some nice character development stuff in this one particularly. And thank you, makers of Star Trek Lower Decks. Finally, we get a Tendi episode. I've been saying this for the last couple of weeks, that Tendi seems to be a bit underserved here. But she gets one of the 2 main plots throughout the episode here, which I've been asking for weeks. She really needed that, and she gets it here. So we'll talk about more what happens to her in the spoiler section, but I think that she was quite well served by that as well. It's good to see. We got a little less Boimer in this episode. Still was there, still had some nice moments, but he was kind of filling the role that maybe Rutherford and Tendi have done in previous episodes, where he's kind of a background, being a bit more background in the episode, and just pops up occasionally and has a little thing going on, but he's not the focus. In this episode, Tendi and Mariner are the 2 characters we focus on, which does mean that Mariner has had the focus on her on every episode so far. So now that we've had the Tendi episode, what I'd quite like to see in the next few episodes is maybe an episode that hasn't got her as the focus at all. That would be quite interesting. Although she's a great character and I love watching her and she's very interesting, she's got a lot of interesting character dynamics with the other crew, both the Lower Decks crew and the senior officers, that are interesting to explore. I think it would be good to have an episode maybe stepping away from her for a little bit. Maybe next week have an episode that focuses on Rutherford and Boimer. That would be quite good too. Now, it's interesting that the opening scene in this, the pre-credits scene, ties into the main plot. We're still in the non-spoiler section. I won't talk about what that plot is. But it's the first time that they have used that to tie in any way into the main plot of the series, of the episode even. And it's interesting that it's the one that works least. It's the least funny of the opening bits before the credits. And I don't know if it's because it ties into the main plot that they're not able to quite go as slightly crazy and hit the punchline as hard on the ending as maybe some of the other ones did. But it was just a little bit lackluster, I think, in terms of openings compared to all the other ones. Even on episode 2, which I thought was one of the weaker episodes, the opening was strong. And here it just kind of fell a bit flat towards the end, which is a bit of a shame. I'll talk about it a little bit more probably in the spoiler section. But other than that, and it not being quite as laugh out loud funny, it was still a good episode. Like I said, there was some nice character development stuff going on, both for Tendi and for Mariner as well, and her relationships with other crew. That was all good. And yeah, you know, it was an okay episode. I enjoyed it. I still enjoyed watching it. There were while overall the episode wasn't as laugh out loud funny, there was one moment in it that did get me laughing and chuckling, which we can talk about a bit later on. It's much like the name of the episode. It's probably a little bit divisive of whether or not it makes you laugh or cringe, but we'll talk about that in the spoiler section. Which, hey, let's get to the spoiler section, because I think I've wrapped up my main non-spoiler thoughts. It was a enjoyable episode, but it wasn't top tier in terms of what we've seen so far from the series. It was maybe a little bit less funny, but, you know, some good character stuff in there. So, spoiler section. The plot I'm talking about is that they come across a generational ship. They've been assigned to investigate a generational ship where all of the crew have been in stasis pods but have died. But on this ship, there's this liquid that terraforms planets by turning inorganic matter into organic matter. Potentially very useful, but you could already see where this was probably going. And it's a typical Star Trek episode of the week plot, and it works quite well. Much like the other episodes we've had, it kind of happens a lot in the background to our main characters, because being on the lower decks, they're not in the heat of the action most of the time. Mariner's a slight exception in this because of something that happens to her halfway through the episode. But on the whole, this is kind of happening in the background. And I can see why they set it up in the opening, but I don't know. The opening jokes and everything, which very meta jokes about, you know, conferences and planning missions and stuff being very boring, all that stuff that we see in TNG where they sit around and there's jokes about sitting around and discussing the Prime Directive, that kind of thing. Things that, you know, can be enjoyable to watch, but there are jokes about it sometimes being a little bit dull. And I don't know, that's the kind of the whole joke of the first bit. And while I think that would be good, that's good as a throwaway line, and it does kind of tie into the episode a bit later on, it's not quite as strong as the kind of more wacky openings we've had so far. But it's a good setup for an episode plot, something to be going on in the background, the main threat to the ship this week that's quite good. In terms of the character stuff, Mariner is clashing with her mum quite a lot. Her mum, of course, being the captain. Now, we've seen hints of this already. We've seen their adversarial relationship, and obviously at the end of the opening episode, we got the reveal that the captain was her mum. But it's the first time that that's really been delved into more than just a throwaway kind of them in passing throwing a bit of shade at each other. In this episode, they really delve into it quite a lot, and it's really interesting. I hope we get some more of it. This episode kind of has a theme, which is, I would say, is overcoming your differences and realizing that someone that you may clash with, you can have more in common with them than you think. And that applies to both Mariner's and Tendy's plot, because Mariner's plot is all about her being forced into a situation where she's forced to bond with her mum. We get a lot of great comedy stuff in the start, because Mariner's mum, the captain, wants her off the ship, really. She doesn't want her there. She's kind of felt like she's being forced, probably by her husband, the Admiral, to have her on the ship. And she wants her to leave, but she can't just transfer her necessarily. So the second in command, comes up with the idea that they should try and get her to want to leave. So they assign her all of the worst lower decks jobs, and including things like cleaning the carbon filters and things like that, and cleaning the holodeck waste disposal units, which leads to one of the funniest moments of the episodes in my opinion, which is the existence of holodeck waste disposal was slightly amusing enough, but not laugh out loud. The laugh out loud bit comes on the deck when I think the second in command goes, doesn't even cleaning out and then it censors it, beeps from the beep or something, and there's lots of censored words, a couple of censored words in there, and then there's kind of this awkward pause, and everyone looks around the bridge, and the captain goes, do people actually use the holodeck for that? And it's something like, yeah, that's kind of mostly what it's used for. And we can all take our own interpretations of that, but let's face it, people are having sex or other stuff with maybe holograms on that. And there's some waste to that. That did make me cringe, but also laugh out loud. It was yeah, that was amusing. And they're right. Like, come on, people absolutely would use the holodeck for that, wouldn't they? Let's be honest. At least a portion of the crew would. So having failed to get her to quit, because what she ends up doing is, we see this in the carbon removal, is she makes her jobs, the worst jobs on the ship, fun by making it a competition to who can clean the carbon things first, and they take wages on it and stuff, her and the other ensigns. And we get she just ends up, making the best of a bad situation, so she's not leaving. And so the captain hits on an even better idea that will make her hate her job even more. She promotes her, which means she has to go to all the boring meetings and get assigned the boring tasks and have to go to the report to executive poker. Yes, those poker games that we saw in TNG, well, now they're being officially mandated. All senior officers must go to the executive poker, and they play fairly. They don't want to do any... They play for fun. They're not betting money, as the security chief points out. And going all in spoils the fun, so she's not even allowed to do that to get out of it. Well, nice little digs at nice little references to TNG there as well, so that was quite nice. But obviously in the background, episode plot, things go wrong. Of course they do. And the liquid that terraforms stuff, ends up coming down the tractor beams and getting on the ship and starts terraforming the ship. Disaster, organic growth all over the ship. People getting crystals shooting out of things, and places turn into caves and all sorts of random stuff like that. It's a bit like the Genesis device, I suppose, in that respect, but in liquid form. But that's what happens, and it throws Mariner and her mum into a confined situation where they have to work together to get out. And there's lots of bickering, and we get to see an insight into, the kind of relationship they've got, and how Mariner always feels like she's, looking over her shoulder and treating her like a kid, and the captain's just frustrated that she is acting like a child and has this kind of attitude problem. And you can see why they clash. They're very different personalities in a lot of ways. But then, of course, to resolve the situation and to resolve and save the day, they have to work together. And they work together in a way and that Mariner gets to show that she is capable and she does know what she's doing, and she can come up with the same or even better solutions than her mum would to a dangerous situation. And they kind of reach this lovely understanding. And then an admiral comes on board after the episode to commend them, and Mariner, of course, ends up insulting him, and she gets demoted again. But there was this nice moment where they came together and had a realization that, they can understand each other in extreme life or death situations. Then we get Tendi's plot. Like I say, I've been looking forward to Tendi having a bit of a plot herself, and this is we get to see an insight into her character, that she really she wants to be loved and by everybody. She doesn't like the fact that somebody might not like her, and she gets into a situation where somebody really doesn't like her because she goes to this kind of spiritual group where they're doing some meditation thing because she wants to see this guy ascend, and he's been trying to ascend for 10 years or whatever, and he's apparently really close to ascending, or so he says. And she goes in, she completely destroys the chi or whatever in the room. She trips over stuff, she knocks things over, destroys his lovely sand sculpture thing that he's been creating for the last 10 years, and obviously he's a little bit miffed at that. And then she constantly follows him around the ship for the next several days, trying to help him ascend, because she feels, well, essentially it's portrayed as that she feels bad, but actually what it really is that he now doesn't like her and she doesn't like that, and we get that reveal a bit later on. And again, it's a very similar thing where when the ship gets taken over by this organic terraforming stuff, they're thrown together in a situation where they've got to try and survive while all this is going on. and and they're forced to work together, and we get to see them bickering and stuff. So it mirrors the Mariner and her mum plot quite well. And in the end, we get the admission by him that he also just wants to be liked, and the whole reason he's doing this whole ascending thing is because it makes him unique. It gives him a thing that he doesn't have otherwise. Otherwise, he's just another boring member of the crew, and there's not much to him. So he's kind of got this, but of course he hasn't ascended, so he's had to just keep on. He used Tendi messing it up as an excuse as to why he hadn't ascended. So they kind of bond over that a little bit, and then he gets hit by a boulder. It's while saving her life, so that of course brings them even closer together, and they kiss. Tendi, you and Rutherford are meant to be getting together. What are you doing kissing this guy? Shocking. But the relationship isn't going to last anyway, because that's when he ascends. Now, ascending, I don't know if we've ever seen a human ascend in this way. Obviously, we have kind of ascended beings like the Traveller, like the Q, who are both name-checked in this episode. But have we ever seen anything like this on Star Trek with humans ascending to a higher plane of existence just through sort of spiritual awakening? I don't think we have. I don't know how I feel about it, but it worked with the comedy of the episode, because then he starts to ascend, and then he finds it quite painful, and it goes on for quite a while, and they play that joke out for quite a while, and it is quite amusing. So on the wider impact of the Star Trek universe, I don't know what this is going to have, but it kind of worked in the episode, so I'm going to let it go. So we get some nice character development from Tendi. We get to learn a bit more about her character, about her need for people to like her, and although she seemingly kind of comes to an understanding with this guy at the end of it, and we kind of feel like she's probably grown a little bit, it's then revealed that actually she still really cares about what people think about her when it comes to the fact that Rutherford makes a comment that, oh yeah, not everybody's going to like you. There's bound to be a couple of people that don't. And she's like, who are they? Where are they? Tell me who they are. She still cares. But I feel like she's probably grown at least a little bit along the way and developed a little bit of at least self-awareness of that part of her personality, whereas she might not have been before, had that self-awareness. It's still there, but she's now aware of it, which is growth. And the same with Mariner. She was forced to work with her mum. She was forced to acknowledge the similarities they have in some aspects, even though they have differences. But in the end, she is her own person. She is her own personality, and she reverted back to that again when it came to dealing with the Admiral, which got her demoted again. So I feel with her as well that she's probably has developed a little bit and is aware, a bit more self-aware of that kind of the fact that, okay, you know, her mum may have some points sometimes, but she's still herself, and Mariner's gonna do Mariner. So look, let me know what you thought of this episode. Let me know how you feel about the word moist. I said I'd say it towards the end of the review again. Moist. How do you like that word? Moist vessel. Does that refer to the goo that gets on the ship, or does that refer to the holodeck waste removal? I don't want to think about that too much. Let me know what you think in the comments below of this episode in generally, and your thoughts on the word moist. And I will see you for next week for the next Star Trek Lower Decks review. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and all that jazz, because it really helps me out. It gives me that warm, fuzzy feeling inside. And I'll see you next week. Goodbye.